Hello, my name is Sean Morris, and I'm honored today to speak to you as the lead emergency housing coordinator for Hospitality House. Over the last few years, I've moved from shelter associate to street outreach and finally to my current position, and now I'm honored and excited to share some of what my life has been like over the past few years with you now. At some point in all of our lives, we will walk past someone sleeping on the sidewalk or parked next to a car brimming with toys and diapers and clothes, showing the telltale signs of when someone's vehicle has become a new family home. Yet very few people get to be the person who get to hand those individuals keys to their first apartments, or get to witness the hope that sparks in our clients when they realize that they will be able to lay their heads down in their first apartment in weeks and sometimes even months. It is that hope and that privilege we have to share that drives the work we do at Hospitality House. I am honored today to share one of those stories with all of you and to allow the rest of you to bear witness to how the work we do doesn't just strive to end the experience of homelessness in our community, but protects the potential of our community. When I first met Nathan Weston, or FJ as most of us know him, he was living in a tent in the woods. On a routine walk of a section I would check while on the street outreach team, I came across a tent I had before and introduced myself as an outreach worker. FJ came out of the tent and introduced himself to me, and we made a plan to meet up the following day to fill out some paperwork and talk about rental options for him. A few days later, after losing track of FJ in what would become a normal pattern of our relationship, we met up again by the shelter. We finally began the long process of what would become years of case management. In our meetings, he began telling me about his life and his background and the immense personal loss that he had been through, eventually leading to him living in a tent in the woods. He shared that he was college educated, had been a professional international cyclist, and worked on the PGA Tour. To meet an individual with this background, living in the woods, and struggling with daily substance use demonstrated to me profoundly the role of trauma that can have in upending lives and keeping our clients from seeing a way out. FJ was like so many of our sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters. He showed me that homelessness is not an impossible reality for anyone, but something that can happen to any of us at any time in our lives. Over the next couple of years, FJ taught me a lot about the cycles of addiction, about homelessness, and about the role Hospitality House truly plays in the lives of our clients. When I first got into this role, I thought of recovery as something that could be started with a quick conversation or a call to a rehab and a short drive down the road. But what I learned from FJ made me realize what recovery really looks like and how the barriers for individuals without adequate resources often perpetuate the cycles that lead clients to our doors in the first place. FJ taught me to never expect someone to take the second step just because they took the first. But offering people that first step is something that we can never, ever, ever give up on. During my years as his case manager, I took FJ to engage with different recovery resources nearly a dozen times and fell into a routine pattern of catching him on a bad day and asking if he'd be willing to take the first step to getting help. Each time he told me, "I think I'm going to go tomorrow," and I made a note to ask him the next day, despite the fact that I knew he would probably spend the next day avoiding me at all costs. Despite this pattern, FJ continued to engage with us at meals and on cold nights, becoming a regular at the shelter and a friendly face to our staff. The more FJ would come around, the closer he would get to all of us, and I would often walk into the shelter to find him engaged in heartfelt conversations with both staff and residents alike. This pattern, FJ taught me, is what the start of recovery really looks like. Recovery and healing starts not just with engaging in treatment, but in building connections that reminds our clients that the stigmas society views them through do not define their present or their future. In my last year as his case manager, FJ began to fall more and more into trouble. He became harder to meet with and was constantly dealing with the struggles of living on the streets. One day, someone was his best friend, and the next day he couldn't meet with me because that same friend had robbed him in order to continue their own cycle of addiction. One day, FJ would be excited about a new housing opportunity, and the next day he would be apologizing for missing an interview because he had been caught up trying to relocate campsites. In his final days on the streets, FJ was living in a drainage ditch, sleeping on a piece of plywood he had placed to let the water flow underneath him. His addiction had reached a fever pitch, and he was increasingly seeking more and more desperate ways to self-medicate the trauma of living outside. Despite living at the lowest point in his life, I knew FJ would see the way out, and one night, he finally did. An acute health condition became exacerbated by his substance use, and he came into shelter in a moment of crisis. He told me, "I might never have left that drainage ditch, but I knew if I could make it to the shelter, I could find hope." Our shelter staff responded to his crisis and sent him to the hospital where we would reconnect. Over the next several months, he recovered in the hospital, and our staff and I would visit him regularly as he healed. Our relationship deepened, and our conversations began to shift more and more towards rehab. He was far from out of the woods, but he was ready to take the second step I had been hoping he would for years. Over the next 2 months, FJ and I worked through the long process of interviewing for rehabs, applying for scholarships, and finally seeking long-term recovery housing. Each of these steps brought their own challenges, but FJ did not back down. He had finally made the decision to recover for himself. In our last conversation before he went to rehab, he somewhat seriously and somewhat jokingly said to me, "You've got a plan for me, don't you?" And deep in my heart, I somewhat felt like I did. I didn't know what the future held for FJ, but I knew I had never met people who cared so deeply for others. And while that could get him into trouble sometimes, I knew that given the right resources, he would be somebody who could come back and give so much to our community. In just a minute, I want FJ to come up here and tell you how much he is doing for our community now. But first, I want to reflect on what his story tells all of us about the experience of homelessness. FJ, in his own words, fell from grace. He was living an exciting life and had all the resources necessary to never experience homelessness. But personal loss, trauma, and unexpected hardships can take all of that away. When we speak with people experiencing homelessness, it's critical to ask not what is wrong with you, but what has happened to you. Because homelessness is not an experience innate to people, and it's no one's destiny. The things in our society that cause homelessness aren't new, and they will likely never go away. Substance use, violence, loss, illness, and crisis will always be around and can always happen to any of us. But what we can change is how we respond to these struggles. At Hospitality House, we respond to these things with the hope and with the steadfast belief that if we can show our clients how much we believe in them, they will carry our message of hope out of our doors. I'm so proud of FJ and the work he has done. He's a reminder to all of us that homelessness is an experience, not an identity, and that with the hope, compassion, and healing, it is an experience anyone can leave far behind.